in my circle? Who the one who be the snakes? Who gon' fold up under pressure? Who gon' understand the stakes? Who gon' wait to get their food to try to take from off my plate? Who the love? Who gon' understand I'm hurt? Who gon' love me unconditionally and try and make it work? Who gon' party once I'm gone and shed a tear once I'm in dirt? I ain't asking for too much, I'm trying to understand my worth.
Welcome to the next episode of Give Me My Crown podcast.
Give Me My Crown podcast.
And we back at y'all with another episode of the Give Me My Crown podcast. And as y'all can see, we do have a special guest on with us today, and we will allow him to introduce himself.
What's going on? My name is Paul Quinichett. I am a retired police officer, real estate agent, and Army veteran.
All right. So actually, me and Paul met each other in the academy, almost 13 years ago?
It's crazy, yep.
I've been working together ever since. Both do, like you said, we both do real estate. He's in the military. He's the him and his wife are the godparents of our children. So we got a lot in common. So we wanted to bring him onto the podcast just to kind of go into his story. As y'all heard, he did say he is a retired police officer. So we're going to kind of go into his story as to how and why he was able to retire at such a young age, and then kind of where he goes from here. So obviously, you started in the police academy. Kind of go through your journey about kind of from when you joined the police department, kind of going into the Army up until this point.
Okay. So yeah, like you said, we started the police academy back in 2013. I was fresh out of college. Matter of fact, my last semester in college, there was a little overlap between that and the police academy. So I was really for like a month or so in the police academy and in college still at the exact same time. My professors were cool. They let me kind of work it out. So yeah, went to law enforcement, majored in criminal justice, and kind of bounced around a little bit when I first got with the police department. Initially I was assigned to one division. I was there for a couple years. I kind of wanted to move to a different area. So after a couple years of like fighting for a transfer, finally made it over there. Then something happened and they moved me back to my old division. So then I was there for a couple more years and moved back to the division I wanted to go to before becoming a school resource officer, which I loved. Love being a school resource officer. One of the best jobs in law enforcement. One of the best kept secrets in law enforcement. A lot of people don't want to deal with kids, man, but I love hanging out with the kids and working with them and mentoring them. So I was there for about 2 years before I decided that I was going to go to the military. I joined the Army National Guard. And honestly, what led me to join the military was talking to you. You know what I'm saying? It was you. It was probably about 3 other officers who were also in the SRO unit. And they were old heads. You know what I'm saying? They had been in 20-something plus years. One of them was still in. The other 2 had already gotten out, but they had been in. And they told me, like, you can't quantify the benefits of being in the military. And a lot of people, I know when I was growing up, I'm not gonna say people look down on the military, but I definitely don't think that like people understood the value of it. People don't understand the value of the benefits. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of like, at least where I'm from, it was college was the epitome, and then you got jail at the bottom, and you got people that get a job fresh out of high school, and then the military was like a step above going to jail. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just like it's
your last resort type thing.
Yeah. It's like, hey, bro, the military is like you. All right, dog, you got to do it, or this it. So, I remember the first time I actually thought about joining the Army, man, I was applying for CMPD, and my plan was if I don't get hired with CMPD, I'm gonna go to the military. But of course, I got hired. Actually, shoot, before that, it was college. If I didn't get into college, I was going to join the military. I got into college, cool. About 2 years in, I was like, you know what? I don't know about school. Yeah, it's a lot of money, da da da. I was going to join. Talked to my pops. My pops was like, man, don't do it. Finish school. If you still want to go later on. I was like, all right. So he kind of talked me out of it halfway through school. Then it was when I applied for the department, and I was like, if I don't get in, I'm going to the military. Of course, I got in. So I got in, got real comfortable with my job. Like I said, worked my way through the career, and I get married, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be one of those people. The first thing that kind of drew me to it was I didn't want to be one of those people that said, man, I wish I went to the military or I was going to join, but, right? Like, you a veteran, bro. You know exactly how that is. Like, I was
Yeah.
going to join, but, I couldn't have nobody talk to me that way. Or I was going to join, but, man, I done knocked out one of them drills. Like, everybody talk that stuff, you know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be one of those people like, man, I wish I would have. And even now, I got a few regrets. I wish I would have joined a little earlier. I wish I'd have done things different in my military career. But I don't regret joining, not a little bit at all. And for a lot of people, I think if we understood, in our community specifically, if we understood the value that the military has and can offer, like, I think that a lot of us would be better off, right? And I'm pretty sure y'all have heard me say this, and I'll say it again while I'm on here. There's two types of people that join the military: people that use the military, and people that get used by the military.
Yeah.
And I was determined to use the military to accomplish the goals that I wanted to accomplish. So, I went in, went to basic AIT. I was an old head in basic training. I turned 28 in basic training.
So did you? Quick question on that. Did you feel? I guess. How did it feel? Because I know, because most people that join the military, a great percentage of them, when they go to boot camp, they're straight out of high school. So 17, 18, 19, maybe 20 years old. So you're going in at what, 27, 28. How did that feel a lot different? And could you physically see that you're a lot more mature than a lot of these other guys?
Yeah, for sure. It was honestly, it was frustrating because a lot of the stuff we got in trouble for in boot camp, we didn't have to. But of course, I'm dealing with young people who they don't have any life experience. I'm not saying they don't, because I don't like to discredit the life experience of people who are 17, 18, 19. I don't want to be one of those people who like to just put down the experience of people who are younger than them. People who had different or less life experience than I had, they were making a lot of mistakes we didn't have to make. So it was frustrating because I did the military. One person mess up, we all got paid for it. So that was frustrating. It was honestly, in some ways, it was disappointing. I expected, specifically the Army, right, to be more organized, more disciplined,
Yeah.
more. I expected a higher level of training than I got, and I think that the police department spoiled me on that, because the police department, I'll say this 100%, like the police department, I got way better, I got a higher quality of training than I got in the military. As far as shooting, defensive tactics, problem solving, thinking your way through things. And also the whole experience of joining at such an older age was humbling, right? Because I go from a position where I've been in a position of authority my whole adult life, so now I go from officer so-and-so to, I came in as a specialist, but in basic training, they call everybody private. So it's like
Yeah.
private this, private that, private this, private that. I got drill sergeants who are younger than me, who ain't never deployed, ain't never been in no kind of combat, ain't never been in no type of like real legit situation, sitting here yelling at me. I'm like, man, I don't been in some life or death situations. I don't been in what I'm saying, some situations back home on the streets. And so it was humbling. I had to kind of, swallow your pride, which I'm glad too, right? Because that kind of, it forced you to kind of bring yourself back down to earth, right? So it
Yeah.
was a humbling experience. It was frustrating. It was somewhat disappointing. It was fun too, right? Some of the stuff you got to do. I'm one of those people. I'm somewhat like a masochist. I like to I don't say I like to suffer, but I kind of do get a little bit of enjoyment out of it. Like, how bad can I really, as a man,
Yeah.
how bad can I endure? So like, I went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri in the middle of the winter where I think negative 15 degrees, and I'm from the South, so like we don't never get no negative nothing. I was dying over there, but just want to see what I could take physically and mentally. So I was disappointed. It was humbling, it was frustrating, and it was fun. Those are like the biggest things I got out of basic training specifically, as far as um, but yeah, I also had a couple guys who were close to my age. They were there with me who had a little bit different life experience. So we kind of linked up, and we just ended up making a joke out of everything. You know what I'm saying? They telling us to
Yeah.
sound off, we being extra loud just because. You know what I'm saying? Like we just started making a joke out of everything. And my drill sergeants, once they figured out how old I was, what I did for a living, they were kind of like, all right, you cool. I had one put me aside, look, just play the game. You know how it is. But honestly, I say the police academy was harder than boot camp. Now, I don't know if it's because I was young when I went to the police academy and older when I went through boot camp. Maybe if I'd have went different paths, maybe I felt differently about it. But in my opinion, the police academy was harder than boot camp because in boot camp you can't really fill out. You just show up,
Yeah.
do what you do. And I remember the police academy, bro. First day of PT, they're like, "Oh, y'all saying fucking PT, y'all can't PT, y'all lied to you, gonna lose your job." I'm like, "Yo, hold on, y'all gonna fire me if I can't do these push-ups?" In basic training, you can't do push-ups. All they do is yell some more. At the end of the day, I can't do them.
It make you
Man,
do more push-ups.
you know what I'm saying? Like it was just in basic training. I was like, man, it's easy. I just push till I can't push no more. Then what you gonna do? Yell at me? Okay, cool. I'm gonna shake them off. I'm gonna keep pushing. And police academy was like, oh, now y'all gonna fire me? Y'all gonna take away my money? Like it was kind of like an opportunity to be at the police academy. And the military is kind of like you stuck. You
Yeah.
just got to make it through to the end. So it was different. And like I said, but I'm glad I went through it. Definitely glad I went through it.
So how did that? So going into the military, how did that? How did you transition from? Because I know you said you went National Guard. So obviously, when you came back, did you transition back into your role as a police officer, or what did you do from that point?
So for me, when I got back I was basic at Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, then AIT at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, because I was artillery. I came back home. I want to say I was back home for like a month and a half, 2 months, actually back home at work. And then my unit got deployed, right? So it was essentially basic training, AIT, and then straight to deployment.
Yeah.
And so we had to do our we went to NTC in California. So there was no big transition period in between basic AIT and then going to like deployment. There was no big transition. It was like I was here for like a day and a half. It was like, all right, I'm gone.
So it was easy for you to kind of stay in military mode and not deactivate that.
Yeah, especially when I got back home from AIT, I knew I was leaving soon anyway. So it's like I'm gonna be back at work at the department for a month. Well, I think really it was like a month and a half. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm about to head overseas. So it was like I was kind of in that military mode anyway. So that transition wasn't bad. It got worse later on in my military career, but that transition wasn't too bad.
For the civilians out there, what's AIT?
So AIT is Advanced Individual Training. So,
Okay.
and they call it different branches call different things, right? Like I guess you call everything's boot camp, right? But actually in the Army it's called BCT. I think Basic Combat Training is what they call it now, or basic training. And then you have every soldier goes through basic training, and then they have AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training, which is your school for your specific job.
Okay.
I wanted when I joined, I wanted to go infantry, right? I was a police officer in two of the busiest, we call them working divisions in the city of Charlotte, right? So I spent a lot of time on the west. My whole career essentially on patrol was on the west side of Charlotte. Back before it was what it is today. Back when the west side was still the west side, and I was over there with Antonio. So like, me, I have different gifts. One of my gifts are like I'm really good shooting. I'm really good at like tactical things, clearing houses. Like, so I wanted to kind of go into the military and do a job that would expand those skills. So initially, I wanted to do infantry. Um, so my AIT would have been that, but since I chose because of my wife, she was like, "Nah, you get shot at home. I don't want you going overseas and getting shot at." So I was like, you know what? All right, let me find. But I wanted combat arms nonetheless. So I chose artillery, and so my AIT, or my advanced individual training, was down at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Yeah, so that's what AIT is. I don't know what they call it in the Marine Corps.
It's MOS in the Marine Corps.
MOS. Okay, yeah. So they call it, different things in different branches, but essentially everybody is a basic. If you're a Marine Corps, you're Marine, Army soldier. Everybody goes through basic training, and then you go to your individual school to do what you want to do. And like I was saying, like the only real regret I have as far as my military, I wish I'd have joined earlier. I wish I'd have joined before I was married, because I would have at least tried to go more on the special operations route, right? So I would have tried to go. If I'd have went Army, I would have done like, I don't know if I'd have done like, I don't think I would have wanted to go like Special Forces or Green Beret or nothing like that. But Ranger, I thought I would have tried to go the Ranger route. But when I'm older, at this point I'm deep in my career. I got my wife to think about her feelings, so I had to take into consideration training pipelines, right? If I go special operations, I could be gone for 2 years. Me and my wife have been married for 2 years at this point. Like, what kind of strain would that put on my marriage? If I was like, all right, babe, I know we've been married for 2 years. I'm about to go over here and I'll see you in 2 more years. You know what I'm saying? I had to think about those things,
Yeah.
which is why I kind of said I wish I kind of would have gotten to that stuff, maybe when I was in college, joined while I was in college, and figured out a way to navigate that with college, or whatever. So that's my only regret, is that I didn't go prior to being married, and I didn't 100% get the MOS that I wanted, because I had to consider, my spouse and everything else going on with that. So yeah. Yep.
So I know. So you went to deployment. How did deployment transition back into coming back home and going back to work?
Okay. So, man, so when I was over there, I deployed. We deployed to Kuwait, Bahrain, were the two main locations. A little time in Jordan, Iraq, and Qatar. I got hurt when I was over there. I hurt my back. There was a couple of injuries that kind of compounded over time. So I ended up in a hospital in Germany. So when I get back stateside, it's like smack dab in the middle of COVID. So as soon as I get back, I'm in Fort Bragg, and it's like, all right, you just touched down stateside. I know you 2 hours away from your wife, who you ain't seen in, what I'm saying, almost a year, but you got to stay in this room for 10 days. I'm like, man, come on. So I was in the medical unit at Fort Bragg for a while, actually, almost a year. But so because of that, mentally, it was a little bit easier to transition, because I'm in, but I'm not in, right? I'm able to commute back and forth to Charlotte to see my wife on the weekends. On the weekends, I'm coming back here. I'm seeing my wife on, so it was a little different on that on that front. But coming back to the department, right? Because I'm hurt now, right? So when I come back, I go on light duty, because I'm still trying to get through my injury. My time in the military, and the Army kind of did me a little dirty on this one. My time in the military, they knew I was hurt. And instead of extending my contract to take care of me and keep me on medical and make sure they kind of said, okay, your time's running out. Because essentially my whole contract, I was on active duty. Even though I was a National Guard soldier, I was on active duty out of 3 years, I was on active duty for like 2 years and 2 months. Or sorry, 2 years, 10 months. So my whole contract, I was essentially on active duty. So they kind of just did me dirty, kicked me to the curb, because my contract ran out. And then when I come back to the police department, they put me on light duty. So I'm in light duty for a while, trying to get, get back right, get my back in order, because I said I injured my back. So come back, push through the injuries best I can. And I think I'm on light duty for maybe a year or so before, like, there's a little pressure coming from up top, like, hey, you need to go back to work, So I'm like, okay, cool. I kind of muster up, do what I need to do. I'm back at work at the police department back in full duty. I'm at the police department for a year, but I was on light duty. I come back on full duty for maybe like 2 months, and I'm back in the school. These kids, man, they get to fighting. I got to put 3 of them down, and next thing I know, boom, threw my back out again. And I went to go see the doctor the next day. Called my sergeant, went to go see the doctor the next day. He said, yeah, it might be time you got to hang it up. I was like, dang. But kind of backtracking to kind of really dig into your question, transitioning back from that year that I'm on light duty at CMPD, coming back from overseas, I would say that is probably one of the hardest times mentally I had to deal with.
Yeah.
And it's little things, man. Like, I remember the first time I saw a kid, I was like, man, like, in my mind, I forgot that children existed because I was in the desert for so long. And I see a kid, I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, that's like, children are a thing. Like, I hadn't thought about or even imagined or nothing with the kid for like almost a year. I remember the first time I sat on a couch, I was like, I forgot couches existed. You know, first time I drove a car, I was like, man, I haven't drove a car, and like, man, it was weird. And then, like I said, when you throw, so it's like the little things kind of add up. When you throw that, like just the weirdness of kind of being, I use the word institutionalized from the military, because I ain't gonna lie, being in the military, especially when you're overseas, specifically in like a combat zone, it is a lot like being in prison. It's a lot like being in prison. Like you're on a military base, which is kind of like a prison. You can't really leave. You know, you got like it's there's so many comparisons to being in prison. I got a friend of mine. He spent some time in prison, and you know, we talking back and forth. He was telling me about I was telling him about my time in the military. He asked me the same question. And he said, "Man, it sounded like you was in prison." I was like, "The only difference between you and me was I was getting paid, dog. That was it." So, but yeah, so one of the analogies I use is, I don't know if y'all ever seen the Shawshank Redemption, but there's a movie, Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
There's an old guy by the name of Brooks. He spent all his time in prison, and when he got out, he didn't know how to adjust to civilian world. Anyway, he ended up like, you know, not making it, but it was because he was so institutionalized. And I had that similar mindset coming back to civilian life. It was like, man, like I don't know, I can't really explain it, but it was super, super hard to adjust back. And, you know, one of my homeboys, one of the guys from my battalion, you know, he couldn't make that adjustment. So, I mean, he ended up, I don't know if I can say commit suicide or not, but that's what he ended up doing when we got back home. But yeah, so that coupled with, like I said, the little changes, the stressors, and you add chronic pain on top of that from my injury, it was horrible, dog. It was like, man, it was tough. Mentally, that was one of the toughest times of my life. Just stress wise and trying to readjust. But yeah, fast forward back to the police department. You know, I'm back on full duty after a year of being on light duty. I get to the school. I'm there for maybe 6 weeks, maybe 2 months max. Break up a fight. Boom, hurt my back again. Doctor tell me like, yeah, you got to hang it up. And that was a tough situation to be in, because I've been in uniform my whole life as an adult at this point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
From the time I graduated college to now, I've been in one uniform or another. You tell me I got to hang it up. So that was tough.
So how old were you when you retired?
When I retired, I was 33.
Okay. So by doing that, did it by retiring at such a young age, do you get that feeling sometimes that you need to do something else, or that you want to do something else, whether it's even going to another career or whether it's just something just to stay busy?
Oh, 100%. Like, anybody that knows me knows, like, I can't sit still. Like, I'm always like, I gotta do something. And also too, I have two daughters. I got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. And I don't want them to see their dad sitting around the house doing nothing. Right?
Yeah.
So I definitely have that need and the desire to want to do something. It's just now, for the first time in my life, it's like I have nobody telling me what I need to do or what I have to do. So whatever that something is, I have to create it for myself. I have to have the discipline to pursue it myself. And if I don't do it, it's on me. If I do it, it's on me. right?
Yeah.
And in some ways, and it sounds crazy because people look at me and I'm like, yo, man, you 33. I'm 34 now. I retired. I was 33. It's like, you 33, 34. You ain't got to work no more. My wife stay home with the kids. So like, she don't work. Like, we're blessed. Like financially, we live pretty good. But like, they look at me like, yo, you don't know how good you got to do it. And I'm like, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because
Yeah.
as men, right, we get a lot of our, like, I don't care what nobody says, us men, right, who take pride in our roles, right, as being men, as being providers and being protectors, we get a good sense of our value and our identity for what it is we do, right?
Yeah.
It's not about the paycheck. While that may play a factor in it, it's not always about the money. It's about like, nah, this is what I do. That's why when we meet each other, we say, hey, like, hey man, my name's so and so and so and so and so. Hey, what do you do? Right? It's
Yeah.
us valuing ourselves or evaluating ourselves in a group of other
Yeah.
men, right? And when that's taken away from you, it's like, all right, what do I say? You know what I'm saying? Like, who am I, right? So trying to figure out what I'm going to do has been tough. I said, what is it now? It's June, about to be July. So I retired, I guess, 7 months ago. And, the first 3 months, 4 months, I was just kind of like, I'm chilling, I'm relaxing, spending time with my family. After that, it was like, okay, now it's time to do something. So I definitely have that need, that desire to do something. I wake up every morning. I hit the gym. I work out to the best of my ability within what I can physically, and what I can't do. And the biggest part of that is mental, right? I give myself a time I got to wake up. I give myself a task I got to complete. I complete it, right? So, and my daughter's asking me, Dad, where you going? Like, Dad, I'm going to work. You're not gonna see a man sitting around and not doing nothing. So I equate the tasks that I give myself to work, to explain it to them. Like, no, this is what a man does. A man works. A man provides. A man protects. Right? When they get older, they're gonna see. They're gonna learn. Like, oh, Dad retired when he was 33 years old, so he didn't have to do that stuff, and that's what I want them to see. Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that desire to want to get out here and work or do something to have a sense of value is definitely important, and it never go away. At least not
Yeah.
I think for men like us, it don't go away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So what's next for you, Paul? Like, what do you see next?
man. Honestly, so I currently I'm in school. Um, I don't have any specific career goals yet. But since I'm a disabled veteran, because I served all that stuff, I have access to VA, resources to help me pay for school. Let me rephrase: to pay for school. They don't help me; they pay for it. You know what I'm saying? Like they. And this is going back to what I said at the beginning when I was talking about how like the military is such a cheat code for people. If we could just deal with the sacrifice up front, it's a cheat code. So um, right now I'm working on my master's degree. I'm getting a master's in Christian ministries from Gordon Conwell Theological Seminary up in Boston. We have a campus here in Charlotte. So I'm working on that. And people ask me, oh, you going to be a pastor, whatever. I'm like, man, honestly, I don't know. My faith is like the cornerstone of my life. So the way I looked at it is if I could spend, 3 years in the military, if I could spend 6 months in the police academy, 12 years at the police department, 4 years in undergrad to build myself a career, then I could definitely spend a few semesters learning about the word of God so that I could be a better husband to my wife and father for my kids. That's my goal, right? Now, if the Lord opens up a career for me on the back end, like I'm not going to go against anything that he has planned for me, right? His ways are greater than my ways. So I'm not going to go against him. I'm going to follow or try to follow the path that he has set for me. But my goal is not specifically to be a pastor or to lead a church. But if that's what he calls me to do, then I'm definitely going to try to be obedient to what he wants. So, yeah, man, I mean, that's my thing right now. I go to the gym. I'm in school. I devote a couple hours a day to my studies, just reading, learning, and I come back home and I spend time with my girls. Plus some entrepreneurial, ventures I have also on the side as well. But those are my like primary focuses in life right now.
Okay.
Yeah. So um,
So do you have I'm trying to think of how to put this. Anybody, do you, first of all, do you have any regrets up until this point? Like as far as, and even maybe even not regrets, just a different way of doing things. Like, for instance, would you have joined the military at an earlier age if you could? I know you mentioned earlier you probably would have done that. Like, would you have done that? Would you? And if you would have done that, would that obviously that could play a role into how you are now? Because that, if you would have joined military at an earlier age, maybe you don't get on with the police department, or just things like that. So do you have any things that you would not necessarily regret, any things you would change around if you could?
I definitely, like I said, joined earlier. Honestly, I know the Army officers. I don't know if the other branches offer it, and I didn't know about this when I was in school. Man, I'd have done split ops. So, for those who don't know, the Army offers a program called split ops, where at least they did. I don't know if they still currently do. Where the summer of your junior year in high school, you go to basic training. Then after that summer, you come back, finish your senior year of high school, and then the summer of your senior year before you go to college, you can, depending on what your job is, right? You can go to your AIT and then start your freshman year of college on time, depending on what your MOS is, your job, right? Some MOSs they're longer, so you might miss that first semester of college. But a lot of MOSs you can take them. I mean, my MOS was 5 weeks, so my AIT was 5 weeks. So I would have done split ops where I would have done, you know, basic after junior year, AIT after senior year. I went infantry, and then I went my 4 years of college, right? And then at the end of those 4 years of college, I would have said, hey, either I'm going to go full career and go through, go officer route with the Army, or I'm going to stay with the police officer route. Knowing what I know now, I would have done that. Still became a police officer, stayed in the guard, and just done the whole time I was an officer doing guard duty the whole time. Hopped on whatever deployments I could hop on. Anytime unit going overseas, like, hey, I go with you. I got as many deployments in underneath my belt. Went to as many schools that I would have done. So that was the only thing I think I would have done differently. Everything else with the police department, I would have kept that the same. But then also I say that, who knows, right? Like if I'd have done something a little different, maybe I don't meet my wife.
Yeah.
Maybe
So with the split ops, because I know essentially, so in the Marine Corps, after you finish boot camp, you go from recruit to a Marine. So you're officially a Marine after, or it's a week before boot camp after you finish the Crucible. So with the split ops, are you essentially enlisted in the Army at that point after boot camp, even before you graduate high school, or does that program make you wait until after AIT before you're officially in the Army?
To my knowledge, in the Army, you're, as far as for the sake of contracts and time, your time starts the day you raise your right hand and you swear in MEPS. That's when your contract starts. You are a soldier when you graduate basic training.
Okay.
Yeah, you're a soldier when you graduate basic training, but your time as far as contract starts the day you raise your right hand.
So when you start your senior year of high school, you are a soldier in the Army at that point.
Yes.
Technically. Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't know that.
That's the first time I heard of that too.
That's what I would have done, man. If I, but like they don't, a lot of people don't know. That's the thing about information, man. You got to, like, I didn't know it. Nobody told me, and looking back on it now, I had no excuse because we have access to technology now, right? I remember when I joined, everybody said, man, it don't make sense. It's dumb. It's stupid. Da, 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 da. You already in Korea. Why you going to go do that? Da, 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 da. And then they look at me now like, man, you 33 and you retired, 34 and retired. That's crazy work. Yeah, how you do that? I'm like, y'all said I was stupid, I said 6-7 years ago now, you know what I mean? So, when God has a plan, I honestly think that had I not joined the military, gotten hurt, everything worked out the way it would, I think two things. The life expectancy of a police officer is about 5 years after retirement.
Yeah.
Based on my projected path, I would have retired from law enforcement at 50 years old. If I was a standard officer, statistically speaking, I'd probably be dead around 55. and the way that I policed, specifically earlier on in my career. I mean, you and I were both the same way, bro. We were hard charged. We was out there running and gunning and doing, we was doing our jobs, but we were like giving it everything we had, right? I think that the way I was policing, specifically earlier on in my career, that the things that I did, the stresses would have caught it with me in a later part of my life. And I think God knew that. I mean, I know God knew that. But I think that if I wouldn't have gotten hurt and been forced out of my career, I think that in a later part of my life, I'd have some real bad problems. Either I'd have major health issues, major mental issues, and I would have had major identity issues being able to pull myself away from uniform. Whether that was military or police, I would have had some major issues with that. And I think that looking back on it now, I think God had a plan. I don't know what it is yet, but I trust and I know God had a plan, and everything worked out the way it worked out because I'm okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm okay, and and I recognize like how blessed I am, right? Like, this 2025 is a great time to be alive, but it's also a hard time to be alive. How many people can say like, yo, I can afford to, my wife don't work, I don't work, I can spend as much time with my kids as I want to. Like that's rare in 2025. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anybody else in this situation. I know people that have, their wives stay home, but like very few people that I know or have positioned themselves and things that kind of fall into that place. And I recognize that's God's plan, not mine.
Yeah.
Even though I did have a plan, I didn't expect it to work out the way it worked out right now. That's all God.
Yeah,
for sure.
You got any more questions to answer?
I don't, man. Like I always call him Pastor Paul all the time anyway. I've been saying it for years, Pastor Paul. So,
man, but we definitely appreciate you coming on the podcast. Definitely giving your insight. We know you got a podcast also. What's the name of your podcast?
Death to Self podcast. It's a Christian podcast where we just kind of dissect the word, dissect the Bible, and kind of dive deeper into what it means to die to ourselves as believers of Christ and kind of follow Him. So
definitely check that out. I think are you on all the platforms also? YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Okay, definitely check that out. Death to Self podcast, and we'll definitely get you back on here for another episode. And either dive deeper into some and maybe military, into law enforcement, or just go another route. Because I know, like you said, you got a lot of entrepreneurial routes that you take. I know me and you do a lot of the same thing, and so maybe we'll get you back on here and go into some of that stuff also.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
But yeah, we definitely appreciate you coming on, and as we say before we get off every podcast, it's more than a podcast. We handing out crowns.
Hand them out.
Who the love it, who the hate? Who the realest in my circle? Who the one who be the snakes? Who gon' fold up under pressure? Who gon' understand the stakes? Who gon' wait to get they food to try to take from off my plate? Who the love? Who gon' understand I'm hurt? Who gon' love me unconditionally and try and make it work? Who gon' party once I'm gone and shed a tear once I'm in dirt? I ain't asking for too much, I'm trying to understand my